Good morning to one and all present here. My name is Niharika Sashidhar, and along with my teammate Jayant, we'll be discussing the costs and challenges of the drone boom. We are two aerospace engineering students from BMS College of Engineering, and with that, we'll begin our presentation. This is just a basic outline of what we'll be covering today. We'll start with how drones have affected our everyday life, then what impact they've had on our environment, and how they're currently being used in the military.
So, for a brief introduction, drones, however, need no introduction. They've become a riveting subject of conversation today. And we have started hearing terms like the drone economy, which is a huge thing now in today's aerospace engineering market. Just to give you a brief idea, the drone economy has had a huge boom in the past few years. So much so that just between 2016 and 2020, major accounting firms like Goldman Sachs have valued the growth of the sector at USD 100 billion, which is a huge sum for such a sector. And we've seen a lot of corporations and individuals adopt drone technology for a variety of functions, such as delivery logistics, photography, aerial surveying. Even agriculture has begun to see the influx of drone technology. And obviously, as a consequence, the amount of drones taking to our skies has grown exponentially, and the number continues to grow every day. So the question we have to ask ourselves at this critical juncture is, what is the impact that the boom of drones will have in the long term? First, to talk about the costs we might face in our everyday lives. Like, these are some things that one might not have foreseen while coming up with drones, but now that we see it, it has become a facet of our lives. So this is an image that I found, and it might look amusing, but it is in fact based in reality. A real risk for drones is the local bird life, and vice versa. Drones are also a hazard for the local bird life. And recently, I came across a report where a crow ended up attacking a food delivery drone in Sydney. And while this may seem amusing and like an isolated incident, the number of drones used for similar purposes is growing, and therefore, this might become a more common incident in the future. And also, it is a very acute representation of how the bird life is adversely affected by the number of drones increasing. And it might even encroach upon bird habitats and cause adverse bird behavior. Another interesting concern is the concern for privacy in public spaces, especially with drone cameras becoming highly powerful. This is a case I came across from about 5 years ago, where a father in Kentucky shot a drone down with a shotgun which was hovering over his backyard. And the reason he quoted was that his daughters were sunbathing in his backyard and he was concerned for his privacy. The interesting fact about this case was that the judge in the end ruled that the father was cleared of all charges because he had a reasonable concern for his privacy, a concern that is shared by a lot of homeowners and people who don't see drones as a necessarily good development. Following up on this, this is a weapon specifically designed to curb the influence of drones and to disable them. And a lot of companies are now sinking a lot of money and research into developing these kind of weapons. While these are currently primarily manufactured for use by the military and by security forces, the day may not be far where the everyday consumer is armed with these and is using them to take down drones that they are afraid of.
So these sort of signs have become extremely common near airports and other restricted areas. This wasn't something we would have even seen 10 years ago. So the major issue that comes with smaller aviations like drones is that they start to conflict with larger aviations like aircrafts in an airport. Any illicit drone activity will ground hundreds of planes and disrupt thousands of travelers. And when a drone enters an airspace without any previous authorization, all the aviation activity has to get forcibly halted in that airport. And this has been seen previously in Dubai, Gatwick, New Jersey, and many other airports. So, coming to the laws that deal with drone activities, since drones are a very recent commodity, at least commercial drones are a very recent commodity, the laws on this matter are very new and vague, and in certain cases, they're even non-existent. Another thing is that these laws don't account for all the possibilities. It's very difficult to regulate commercial drones because you have no idea where you're going to end up seeing them. As discussed before, we've seen them being attacked by birds or entering airspaces, this isn't something you can really curb. And I think right now the laws that even exist are not strong enough to actually curb the activities, and they even lack jurisdictions in certain areas. So the next thing we have to consider is the environment factor. When we create any commodity now, the thing we have to consider is how that commodity is going to impact the environment. Like when you take drones at a face value, you don't really think they will impact the environment. Generally, when you see a drone, you're only going to think that they're going to go take photos or capture footage or do some aerial surveillance. But these sort of things can become a hazard because last year during the California wildfires, the drones that were in the airspace ended up preventing actual firefighting aircrafts from operating because they proved to be a risk and they could have caused some sort of accident. So even if they're just being used for surveillance or taking photos, in such cases where it's a natural disaster, we have to consider how they're going to impact the entire environment and how we have to come up with better regulations and laws to curb this sort of drone behavior.
An important factor that we have to consider is that a majority of components in drones are made of electronics, which consist of elements like silicon, germanium, etc. And in addition, the motors in drones often contain magnets made of heavy metals. This adds a huge burden to the already overloaded e-waste disposal paradigm. And if the number of drones grow exponentially, and we'll obviously continue to see more drones being damaged or more drones being destroyed in the line of duty, it might lead to an untenable burden, and it might cause even a more severe problem when it comes to disposal of e-waste. Like if you notice, a lot of components in drones aren't very recycle friendly as well, and drones are often made from what we call thermosetting plastics, which cannot be recycled. So it is a concern for a lot of environment regulators as well. And weapons in the wrong hands. So drones as weapons are not a new concept, at least to most countries. But what if these weapons fall in the wrong hands? This image is obviously familiar to all of us here. It is the image of a Predator drone, which is the American model, which is used mainly by the Americans and Israel. And drones, even before their commercial use, have been used extensively by the military. And hundreds of billions of dollars have been spent on developing attack drones and targeting aircraft like the one shown above. And today, many countries have these, including our own Air Force operates various attack aircraft and targeting aircraft. But only in the recent years have we been seeing the horrifying effects these have, especially in war torn countries like Afghanistan, where they've caused not only huge infrastructural damage but hundreds of lives in civilian casualties, not just combatants but civilians. And I feel that is something that no developed and humanitarian country should endorse.
If drones are being used by the military, there is some consolation that there are laws and regulations that would, uh, take care of where they will be seen and their behavior. But right now, the problem that we're seeing is that there are a lot of drones that are being modified illegally. So last year, there was a drone that was seen dropping a lunchbox that contained a bomb. And near the border, there was an 8 by 8 drone that was seen carrying explosives and other weapons, and it was seized by the BSF. So these are very unforeseen, like activities that we cannot really regulate. So there is a concern that these drones will also become another tool that can cause violence and terror. So at this junction, I think the main thing that has to be done is create better stringent laws that would regulate and see where these drones can be used and by whom it's being used.
So, in conclusion, drones have become, for better or worse, an integral part of our economy and our lives, and they are what we can consider a disruptive technology. As in, it is something that is entirely new and has caused a paradigm shift in how we view things. And in the end, of course, drones are just tools, and one can obviously use them for a large variety of functions. And now that the drone boom is in progress, there will emerge new and new functions which will only cause a greater creation of jobs and a larger prosperity in the economy. And at this point, it is pretty much inevitable that drones will play a major role in our lives. So it is important for us to understand what kind of challenges they possess and what kind of adverse effects they can have, so we can mitigate these effects and accept this new change without upsetting a delicate balance. And as for what we can directly do and what changes this will bring, only time can tell, and it is up to us as the future engineers and policy makers of this country to ensure that this progress and change goes in the right direction. With that, we'll be concluding our presentation. This has been Jayant and Niharika from BMS College of Engineering. Thank you so much for your time.